Hey there, my friends. Another book review. In February, I got in the mood to do book reviews, so now it's March, and the book I just finished yesterday is Ani DeFranco's memoir, No Walls and the Recurring Dream. Ani DeFranco, the folk singer. Uh, she's actually known for a lot more than being a folk singer, and I'll speak about that. So, if you want to relax for a minute, I'm going to dig into this one a little bit, maybe more than my previous two book reviews. So, Ani DeFranco is known for being a feminist, for being an indie entrepreneur, for being a folk singer, for being a bisexual. For a while, she was thought to be a lesbian, I believe, and that's how I kind of remembered her. But she is bisexual. It doesn't matter, except that she's a voice for that community. So it does matter in terms of how people interpret who she is and what her message means in the greater dialogue in society. So I remember Ani DeFranco when I was an up-and-coming singer-songwriter, folk musician myself, around 2001, I released my first album called Brooklyn Folk. And she was a person who had already paved the way for DIY musicians, so I was paying attention. She was the most famous one at the time, so I was paying attention to people like her. Not because I was a fan of her music, but simply for who she represented. So I did buy an album or two, and I'm still not a fan of her music. I don't dislike it, but I'm not gravitated. I don't gravitate to listen to it. If it's on, it's interesting to me. But it's more her personality, her voice, what she represents as a possibility. And her, you could say courage, you could say brazenness. It comes through. So there's a lot of her story that I can relate to, even though I'm a male, she's a female. She definitely has the voice of a poet. Her music is kind of talk singing type of thing many times, more than just one simple melody, although maybe she has many of those as well, I don't know. But the music I'm familiar with is kind of like a talk singing style. Her guitar playing is very unique, very percussive and like fingery. She's not a strummer, she says, and I remember that about her. And it usually has some sort of message that is kind of could ruffle feathers, could ruffle your feathers, could be hard to take, but refreshing in its, you could say honesty, refreshing in its uniqueness, in the fact that it has a voice at all. That's what she does. She gives voice to things that don't have a voice, in my experience with her. So the book, I definitely recommend it. I would probably give it 4.5 out of 5 stars if I could. I give it 5 stars, whatever. But it's not a page turner like some other books like Duff's autobiography. Duff McKagan was a page turner for me. This not so much, but simply because it's less of a, it's certainly an adventure, but it has some stuff you gotta chew on, like this is more a whole food, plant-based diet and type of autobiography, even though I don't think I don't know how conscious she is of food or anything like that, but there's stuff to chew on in her book. There's philosophy in there, there's political ideology. She's nothing thrusting anything on you, but she is giving voice to strong opinions, and it's up to you what you make of them. So it wasn't exactly a light read, but it wasn't filled with heaviness or anything like that. It wasn't a heavy book, but it was, like I said, not quite a page turner, but I did finish it within a couple weeks. I wanted to mention that, I noticed that she says that she found herself as a bridge between the older folk generation and the new folk generation, and I would verify that's true. The older folk generation being, if you start back from like Woody Guthrie, Pete Seeger, in the, 40s and 50s, I'm not sure, into the Bob Dylans, Peter, Paul and Mary's, and the 70s, Jim Croce's and James Taylor's, and then you have this kind of empty void in the 80s and 90s, kind of, and then you come to Ani DeFranco, and she kind of, she doesn't bring folk back, but it becomes mainstream again, and she's kind of at the forefront of that. Or maybe you could say she brought folk back. I don't know. It depends on how you look at it. So she gave me kind of some courage as to how I could be a folk musician in a DIY sort of way, and I am pretty DIY to the core. Being a member of CD Baby and everything. So I'll mention that I found it interesting that she kind of ends the book around 9/11. The first 30 years of her life is kind of the context you get, or the time frame. And it sounds to me like the wind went out of her sails when 9/11 happened, the terrorist attacks in New York City, and she was there in New York City. And then she went into a different phase of life after that. It wasn't because of 9/11, but it just kind of symbolized the world that we were all living in up until that time, kind of crumbling, and with her own self-image was kind of shaken, it seems. So for me, it's very interesting because my first folk album came out a month after 9/11. And even though that was when I kind of began my musical career, my singer-songwriter career, if you want to call it something. And similarly, even though I didn't end it right there, but it started off with a real weak energy because all of a sudden the wind went out of everyone's sails, including mine, and I didn't feel that my music was that important in a month after 9/11. What I was singing about seemed kind of small potatoes compared to what was going on at large. And even though it was important to me, it also wasn't really hopeful, much of the music on my first album. So I'm like, what am I offering? So had 9/11 not happened, maybe my folk aspirations or my singer-songwriter aspirations would have went more full throttle. But I'm glad things in my life developed as they did, and I chose to just kind of take my singer-songwriter career kind of lightly. It's just interesting how she kind of ended as I came up, while 9/11 put that damper on her and made her switch gears, or kind of inspired that switch, it also inspired me to switch gears right out of the gate, to kind of take this DIY thing with less enthusiasm than I would have otherwise, probably. Otherwise, her voice is just really penetrating. She says some things that are hard to hear for some, perhaps, and I think need to be said. I really love that she's a feminist, and she kind of attacks patriarchy. And when I say attack, I just mean that she says, in order for us to really evolve as a species, as a country, as a globe, we have to see that patriarchy is a fundamental problem. And I never really thought about it. Like one concept she puts out is like the alphabet itself is patriarchy, because, you know, the sort of masculine part of the brain wants to label things and say this is it, and the feminine part of the brain might have more of a space of a tolerance for not labeling things and, you know, being so sort of logical and concrete. That's an interesting thought. And I thought about afterwards that even the queen, she didn't say this, but I imagine like even the queen is still patriarchy. It's because patriarchy, from her opinion, is a hierarchical system. So I do agree that I don't like hierarchy. That's not naturally occurring, you know, like a built-in false created hierarchy. I'm not a fan of, especially if it implies that people are not, you know, equal in some way. Anyway, I'm losing light. I recommend the book. It really made me think, and it gave me the inspiration to remember that what I love about folk music, which is it's the music of the people, and what I love about my own music is it's just an expression of my soul. So she helped me to remember that. So I went and recorded some music while I was reading this. It's songs I've been longing to record for so long. And I just did it with very no sense of perfectionism, just like recording the sound in the room and being okay with that. And that I really appreciate her for that. So thank you, Franco, for writing your memoir. It inspired me. I'm writing my autobiography now, and I'm sure this will have a positive effect on my process. So thanks everyone for watching. Please like the video if you like it, and have a great day.